soul.
What is the soul? Is the soul different from what he's talking about? Tell me more about that.
I mean, that's like another belief phrase that the soul's gonna go somewhere.
Is the soul and the mind different?
I think that one of the things is that there's so little science, or there's so little that we know about the brain, or like.
We know more than you think.
I mean, I think that that almost comes to like a personal belief, because some people with that, and like, where's the gut, and like, where's the heart? You know, like, I mean.
Right, but do we think there's a spirit living in your intestines that departs when you die? Oh, its gut is gone. That large colon is somewhere. Do we have a name, a separate thing, like a that lives in your large colon? Transverse colon, that's gone now. The pancreas thing, that is gone. And it is. Oh, I guarantee there are people who do believe that. Absolutely. All right, you're right. There could be a left elbow thing. Yeah.
So we think, it seems like in our culture we just conflate the mind and the soul.
Yes.
But not necessarily. I don't know. Maybe. I mean, I know that there are other
But the point is, you have no other coherent way to talk about it without sounding crazy or condescending.
Here, we just talk about it in our culture.
Tell me one.
I mean, there's like, I know in Eastern religious traditions it seems that the mind and the soul are separate, or that there's a mind, a rational conscious mind is not what carries on that.
Now, no, it is, and I'll tell you, the Greeks didn't think so either, but we'll get to that.
Right.
I mean,
Before you go,
that's in
I just
Western
want to show you what
religions, too.
Eliot's doing. He's doing something Americans can do. I'll explain why in a second. He just ripped off centuries-old Eastern wisdom. Those poor bastard Hindus and Buddhists don't have a chance when an American with a DIY attitude comes around. We will cherry pick and take whatever we feel like from these ancient cultures out of context and put it to work and make it useful for us, for our personal development. Americans are really, and why not, but total disrespect, but also total pragmatic adaptability. Also, Eliot did not change the discourse. He said, oh, I got another way to talk about it. No, he didn't. He had a completely conventional mind and brain soul thing. Didn't introduce any new ideas, but he invoked the Easterners and said they do it a little differently. One reason, why can Americans do that in a way that Azerbaijanis can't, as convincing as the movie Borat was pointing to?
I feel like it's because we lack like an American culture. So all the culture that we
plenty of culture.
yeah, but all the culture that we have is stuff that, like you said, we ripped off from another land or from from our nationality. You know?
My point is going to be the eclecticism kind of mix and match is a culture. But it's a culture based on an assumption, which is what?
It's like science that we know it all. Kind of.
Well, how come we get to think that?
I consider myself fairly logical and stuff, but then I consider myself spiritual, and I
Yeah, we
see
can
that
do
a lot
whatever
in
we
America.
want. That's my point. Because we have the power.
Yes,
We got the money, we got the weapons, we got the kill weight of nuclear device. We get to do what we want. Happily, cheerfully. Oh, we're good at it. We're really good at it. Now, we could all, I think, because nobody's had the power we've had. Not that other cultures have not achieved. The Romans did this with great shamelessly. Everybody's done it with everybody. We get to do it a lot because we probably have more power. That's all. There will be somebody coming along who does it better. But I think there's a connection.
So why is power equated?
Because you can barge into the room, say, I like that dog, give me that. You can have it. Yeah.
That's very
I completely agree with everything that you're saying about cultural imperialism and appropriating other culture. I totally agree with it. But isn't there a way of acknowledging that there are other stories about death
Oh, of course.
from other cultures?
And they're always, on some level, condescending. Because you're doing it.
Right, but isn't there a way of acknowledging that there are other stories
Oh,
without
absolutely. You can
without
do it.
appropriating it?
You can do it with a great deal of respect.
So how do you go about
And
doing
you
that?
can't possibly not be condescending when you do it.
Okay.
Boy, those Mexicans are smart people. But I get to say so. I don't really care what the Mexicans think about my intelligence, because it doesn't matter.
So you don't think there's a respectful way of doing
Oh,
that?
yes, there is. But I'm skeptical. How many
Exactly.
Southern Californians speak fluent Spanish? White people, I mean. It would be good if we did, it would be a huge help.
It's usually what they
culturally.
take in school.
I'm not gonna bother, why am I not gonna bother?
You don't have to.
Yeah,
Fuck it.
they don't learn
I don't have to, Mexicans are my gardener. And in my brutal arrogance, I don't bother to be troubled by that. The lady across the street does speak fluent Spanish, she's not Hispanic, with the working people that she has. I resent,
How do you not do that? How do you conduct yourself in the world with any sort of respect?
just be one. Bradbury's point is, you're in a historical position, all right? Now, within that position, there are differentiations of power, but rituals and stories and who gets to tell them have a lot to do with the rest of the power to do that. Now, there are sub-stories that maintain themselves as a kind of resistance to power, okay? And within our culture, certain groups of white people are less privileged than other groups. So there's differences in power there. So there's a lot of gradations. Who's in the best position in our culture right now?
White guys.
White males.
White guys.
Heterosexual.
All right? Now that is not going to be true terribly much longer, because these things are never stable. All right? It's already received the death knell of everybody. Why is that? It's very simple. It's not complicated.
Or becoming the minority.
No, not because of that. Being minority is absolutely irrelevant to having power. Most power people have been minorities of some sort. What is it that's going to make women dominant for maybe 20 years?
Education?
Yeah. Women are going to school more. Moronic men are drinking beer and behaving badly. Women are taking over medicine and law, and they'll soon be taking over executive positions. Women have better social skills because they were raised to be more submissive and they had to get along better, so they're way better at networking and connecting. Corporate life demands that. And they go to school better and behave better when they're in school and get better grades and accomplish more in the time given, because men are distracted by lots of testosterone and hormones and a culture that encourages misbehavior. And over time, men are not going to have the power no more. It's very simple. And again, we can see that on the horizon. And the stories about death will change as that changes, right? So we're in the midst of a huge social revolution, which most people, of course, are unaware. The best point Marx ever made was that thinking with current categories means you always get it wrong. Because the world has always moved ahead a little bit beyond what you can understand. And your attempt to understand the world at the moment is a vacuum and filling operation that has a certain percentage of self-deception. You have to be telling a lie to yourself that justifies you. And Marx is absolutely right about that. The world is changing in ways we can't possibly predict or think clearly about. Okay? And as we're seeing here, you're stuck in thinking in certain ways. We're thinking about this ghost in the machine thing, which is really crazy. But we don't have another way to talk about the soul and the mind. We just don't. Right? Nobody in here has ways that they can get away with. Right? So we're all trapped by that. Yeah.
You say that Americans kind of hold the story, but what is the story that people?
Well, the first primitive story is that there's something, if you believe in a soul or a mind, okay? You have to believe almost that it's in the brain, unless you're a nun. And the images about death is that something leaves the body. And the only thing we can think of leaving the body is some kind of thinking thing or soul. If we're atheists, we believe it disintegrates and goes away. That the mind is simply produced by neuroelectric activity. If we're believers, we think there's something separable that goes away. Right? I'm going to call that the hybrid model of humanity. Right? Traditionally, we think of ourselves as priestesses. There's a body, that's one kind of thing, and a soul, that's a different kind of thing. And when they die, they separate, which means something. Though here's an interesting insight. In Western culture, think about this. One dominant, not the only, but one dominant strain that comes out of Greece, and Plato especially, is the idea that human beings are not a natural kind.